Perfect. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, women from Siraat College. Today we have a special program on the topic of the correlation between gaming and gambling, which is presented by our sister Manal Shehab from Shark. She'll tell you all about what she does. First, we'll begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Wurundjeri, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and any elders we may have with us here today. Sister Manal Shehab has a robust history of advocacy for gambling harm reform, and she's also a community advocate for a range of topics. I'll hand over to Sister Manal Shehab. I just want to also let you know that this session will be recorded, but we want to give people every opportunity to be able to ask questions. So you're welcome to include your questions in the chat box, or you're welcome to raise your hand and ask them verbally as well. But at no stage will your name or your face appear in the recording. So I wanted to let you know. And in any case, if you don't want to be seen, you're welcome to turn off your cameras as well. So over to you, Sister Manal.
Jazakallah khairan, Gulhan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you today. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Gulhan, again. I too want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Also want to concede that we are on stolen lands and these lands were never ceded. Okay, so I work with the Self-Help Addiction Resource Centre as a family facilitator for alcohol and drugs, and I do support in the gambling space as well. Shark offers a range of services for those that are impacted by drug and alcohol, as in ResiCare and other programs, and I work with the families. So I support family members with loved ones impacted by drug and alcohol addiction and gambling addiction sometimes with my peer lead, Angela Ireland. Today, we are talking about the correlation between gambling and gaming. I just want to give you a bit of context as to what happens to the brain and the reward system when a person has an issue with gambling, because gambling is a behavioural addiction. It is unlike alcohol and drugs, whereas you can see or smell alcohol and drugs. But with gambling, it's an unseen addiction. And it is the only behaviour addiction that has thus far been mentioned as a mental health disorder in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, written by the American Psychiatric Association. People who gamble often ask themselves why they can't stop. And gambling can become addictive and has the same features in terms of brain activity as substance addictions. This explains why, despite wanting to stop, many people will struggle to control their gambling addiction and have tried many, many times before they find support and success. So, dopamine and gambling. Gambling addiction, like other forms of addiction, is associated with the release of dopamine in the brain as much as 10 times the normal release. And the reward system, basically, if you do something you like, whether it's spending time with the kids, the grandkids, having a barbecue with family, if you're into reading or writing or cooking and you enjoy those things, there's a natural release of dopamine levels saying, I like this. However, when it's unnaturally given in such a quantity where all the dopamine is released at once, this chemical signals, like sends a lot of signals saying, this feels really good, I want more of it, I want more of it. And what begins as a harmless, good feeling can turn into a compulsive need in some people. This happens because of the body's natural response to external stimulation of dopamine productions. In essence, dopamine centers become lazy and stop doing what they're intended to do. Instead, they simply wait around for gambling or alcohol and drugs to work for them. This very natural psychological tendency creates tolerance, which drives the need for more and more gambling in order to receive the same rush. Gambling addiction may then develop into which a person must gamble just to feel good or even normal at times. Experts used to think that addiction as a dependency is a dependency on a chemical. But right now, research shows that it is the pursuit of a rewarding experience despite the serious repercussions. So it's chasing that euphoric feeling, that wow, feel good feeling. And as the body builds tolerance, and it's almost like likened to your first kiss or your first intimate experience, people end up trying to chase that rush over and over again. And they can't get that first experience. But it's the pursuit of that releases, the dopamines, and that's what they're after. So it's not necessarily the actual active gambling or the alcohol drug substance itself. It's actual the pursuance of that experience. It's estimated that every person who gambles compulsively, 5 to 10 family members or people in their circle are impacted. And this can have social, physical, and financial impacts on those close to them. The gambling industry actually targets people that are already stressful. Then it offers them a euphoric sensation and then takes the money off them. And right now, I guess, with Australian children and adolescents conducting much of their schooling, socializing, and gaming online because of lockdown, and now that we're in the school holidays, supervising parents are being given the view into their children's often most secret digital lives. We're scratching the surface, and parents can see that it's not all fun and games, with some children and adolescents being unknowingly exposed to gambling through gaming. Most Australian children and adolescents have their own electronic device, and 2017 data show that 81% of Australians aged 8 years old, that's 8 years old to 17, have played an online game. Right in their hand and often behind bedroom doors, gambling and gaming-like products are accessible and promoted to young audiences across their favourite digital media channels. Gaming isn't always innocent digital entertainment, even when money isn't exchanged. Many games stimulate gaming. For example, loot boxes and in-game reward systems that can be bought with real-world money. Inside the boxes are random groupings of virtual cosmetic items known as skins that help the gamer customize their character in very cool ways. Or not. They may contain nothing but of value, getting children used to the thrill and frustration, that cycle of chance in gambling. While the review site's 2017 data shows that 34% of Australian young people made in-game purchases in the past 12 months, those numbers are only increasing. And a 2018 review of 22 popular video games found that 6 met the criteria for gambling, where players could cash out winnings for real money. Unfortunately, there's no age limit when it comes to gaming. People can be, as young as 8 years old or even younger. And unfortunately, $41 billion was lost to gaming and gambling across the globe last year. And unfortunately, that meant that 1 in 3 were children aged between 11 to 16 years of age. So these games are designed to keep us engaged and create feelings of near wins, or even give you small winnings along the way. However, in the long run, you never win. You end up putting in more money than what you actually get out. The games are specifically designed to envelop the player with great attention going to colors, sounds, designs, and of course, the algorithm patterns by the world's best mathematicians that ensure that the machines end up winning and you are constantly losing. Skilled-based gaming machines are what is being developed recently. The gaming industry or the gambling industry, those manufacturing things like poker machines, have discovered that there could be a risk of these poker machines becoming obsolete and the industry fading away and dying, just like any other industry. So, and they've also discovered that it tends to be people over 50 years old that are attracted to the traditional poker machines, where they just have to press the button, look at the lights and the wheels and the action that gives them that hope that they could be a winner. Even though their brain, they know prior to getting into that cycle that the chances of winning is minimal. Once they get on that chase and they start pressing that button, their emotions and everything that comes with the experience overrides their logic. That surge of dopamine that comes into the brain and the experiences they're getting pretty much closes down their prefrontal cortex, which is what is responsible for making sense, processing, and focusing on logic. It closes that down. So what these manufacturers are now doing is combine the element of chance with skills. It gives you a sense that your skill set might give you a chance with the random, with the random chance of winning something. So it's pretty much creating an illusion, an exacerbated illusion of control, where people feel they can actually win something. And this means that they can tap into younger age groups than the traditional poker machines. The games are designed to appeal to the millennials who have grown up playing on smartphones and computers. The new wave of product features interactivity and reward players for their skills, similar to things like puzzles like Candy Crush, the classic Pac-Man, sports games and shooting games. They may use joysticks or touch screens, and multiple players can be used at once. So people that are lobbying against these games argue that they should be called video game gambling to better educate players and reduce what we often call a mismatch between the mental model of the player and the maths model of the game. Of course, manufacturers want to call it video games or even skill-based gaming because it serves their purpose, but that's too confusing. And really, calling it out for what it is, video game gambling, actually describes what it is. It's fun, the video game part, but there's also the thrill of the gambling component that are unknown. I remember when my kids were young and we didn't have a TV. Well, we had a TV screen, but it wasn't connected to the, it didn't have an antenna, so we couldn't watch movies. And as a lot of you would know, I did have, homeschooling, and my reward to my children was, during the weekdays, it was all their Quran and their studies, and I would give them a 1 hour window where we would collectively play Mario Kart or Nintendo or that or these sports games and driving games. 1 hour Friday night and Saturday, Sunday, they were back to work. Now, a few years ago, it seemed like innocent fun. And I remember driving the car with my little kids, and it's like, oh my God, I just got a star. My car has now boosted in front of yours. I now get to upgrade to a better car. I get to skip the hardest track, and that gives me a better chance of winning. And the amount of fun we were having playing these games, not understanding how they were grooming us and really prepping us to the gambling world coming into teenage. Now, a couple of my kids that were older ended up wanting to play games like, there were these shooting games like Call of Duty and other things where the wins would be, you know, better weapons, better equipment, being able to have armor and stuff like that. And one of my sons was really into this, and he asked me to buy him a Bluetooth thing. And because he was doing well with his Quran and getting up at Fajr and, you know, going through his Subki and Sabak and all the juzzas with me, I'd reward him. I'd say, sure, you can have half an hour on this. And I went and purchased his Bluetooth thing, and he's playing online. And he asked for a game called Grand Theft Auto. That's right, Grand Theft Auto. And at the time I was a bit, you know, worried about this. It just, something didn't sit right. And I Googled a bit about Grand Theft Auto and other similar age group products, which were for teenagers. And I discovered to my horror that every time you passed a level, something was revealed to the player. And it wasn't always something innocent, like a weapon or better armor or a better chance against your opponent. Sometimes visual silhouette images of women clad in near to nothing clothes, or something that promoted or hinted at a person's sexuality, or hinted for them to explore that. All these subtle messaging were embedded in some of these games. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I invite into my home? You know, lesser evils, I thought, which prompted me to go down the track of looking into all these things. And one thing leads to the other. It is not by chance, these colors and smokes and light and wheels going and using cartoon characters and using Marvel superheroes and using things. There's millions of dollars going into the research of making these games appealing to the youth. They could be sitting innocently doing their homework or researching something, and all of a sudden, all these ads come up. And none of us are immune to that one click of curiosity and seeing where that leads us. And I guess it comes down to a little bit of more open communication with your children, more monitoring without finger pointing, without targeting a certain person within your household when it comes to screen time. I remember when I learned all of this, I decided, and I just stumbled on something called Screentime. It was an app that allowed me to put a bedtime and a wake-up time on all my children's devices. It allowed me to put in what sites they can access and what they couldn't access. And if they attempted to access something that we had negotiated and put down as their apps that they were allowed to explore, had they tried to access a different app, I'd get a message notifying me of what app they tried to access. And that spurred me into having a conversation, an open conversation with them, which could deter them from trying to find something else. Something else I tried, and this is just giving you a bit of tools, was that at 9 o'clock, all digital equipment was in the lounge room, including mine, including the adults in the house. Bedrooms were not allowed to have any internet or any devices. And that's so that we could have a good night's sleep, so that our moods, our stress levels, everyone knows the benefits of a good night's sleep and sleep hygiene. So that was across the board for all of us. It's a little bit tricky with the teenagers at start, but then they understood. Long-term is better grades, better social connections, and being able to actually focus on a task at hand. For some of us, that's not possible. Some of us adults, we have people that are dependent on us that are not in our household. So we can actually have that conversation and say, as an adult, your grandmother, your uncle, your aunt, other people in the community are dependent on me having my phone on. That is why my phone is on, and that is why it is in my room. When you are an adult and have people dependent on you, that, you might have that privilege as well. And it's about that open communication. I want to share with you a little video that was made about gaming and how loot boxes work, and how these cosmetics, which are skins, mean that the reward, the in-house rewards, are designed to captivate their audience. That will just give you a little bit more insight.
We're not going to tell you what's inside. It might be something kind of awesome. Then again, it might not. How much would you pay to find out?
Sorry, start again.
Here's a box. We're not going to tell you what's inside. It might be something kind of awesome. Then again, it might not. How much would you pay to find out? Every day, people, including kids, are spending millions of dollars to open boxes just like this, all in the hope of winning big. If you think that sounds like gambling, you're not alone. They're called loot boxes, and they've become one of the most controversial aspects of the video game industry. Here's how a loot box works. As a player progresses through a game, they're rewarded with loot. That's the name used to describe in-game items, things such as weapons or cosmetic perks that can help you customize your character's appearance. You could give them a hat, a shiny new sword, or some other accessory to dress them up for fun. You can earn loot by doing well at the game, or by earning currency that you find along the way. Now you've got money to spend at the in-game store. Sometimes these stores are designed to sell just one thing: loot boxes. Think of it as a mystery box. What you get for your virtual cash is a surprise. And like most surprises, there's an element of chance. If you think that sounds similar to gambling, you're not wrong. Like poker machines, loot boxes use sound and visual effects to create a buzz of excitement and anticipation. Pokies and loot boxes also dangle small rewards in front of the player, while at the same time tempting them with the potential to hit the jackpot. Because some loot or rewards are more common than others, certain items appear frequently. Others are prized for how rare they are. All this triggers a surge of dopamine in the player's brain, giving them that feel-good rush that keeps them coming back again and again. Players who use their virtual cash to buy loot boxes can never be quite sure if they'll unwrap something rare and desirable, or an item that's common and useless. The in-game currency or points you use to buy loot can take a long time to build up, but there is a way to take the fast track for a chance at those rare treasures. Forget about make-believe coins and gems, you can spend real money instead. It's much faster to use actual money to exchange for more loot boxes. One report estimated that in 2018, players around the world spent more than $40 billion on loot boxes. And a survey run by the UK's Gambling Commission found that nearly 1/3 of children aged 11 to 16 spent money on them. But can buying loot boxes really be considered gambling? Well, it depends who you ask.
There are now a number of studies that show that loot boxes are associated with gambling and gambling problems. They are a random chance item, you have to make a payment, and you get something that's of value. And then you start to look a lot like a gambling characteristic or a gambling mechanic within the game, which is available to people without any age restrictions or other consumer protections as would be required by any other gambling activity.
The video game industry denies this.
We agree with the UK Gambling Commission, the Australian Gambling Commission, that they aren't gambling, and we also disagree that there's evidence that shows it leads to gambling.
The Interactive Games and Entertainment Association says that loot boxes use the same surprise and delight mechanics that products such as Kinder Surprise chocolate eggs have used for years. But despite the resistance, a growing tide of suspicion and criticism is prompting the games industry to act. Some developers are slowly phasing out loot boxes voluntarily. Others are changing the mechanics so they're more transparent. The online sensation Fortnite now allows players to look inside loot boxes paid for with real money so they can remove the element of chance and decide if it's worth the cost. Other games have removed them altogether. In 2018, Belgium became the first country to ban loot boxes, arguing that games of chance in video games will cause great damage to people, family and society. Other countries could soon follow suit. In Australia, loot boxes have been the subject of 2 government reports. One recommended looking for options for restricting access to loot boxes in video games to adults aged 18 years or over. But for now, loot boxes are largely unregulated, so it's a case of loot box buyer beware.
I hope you found that informative. Australia actually has the highest rate of gambling in the world, if you didn't already know that. And such aggressive campaigns aimed at our kids. Oh, sorry. I hadn't switched it off, sorry. So gambling can actually change a person's mood for a short term. Most gamblers, it provides an escape from stress, anxiety, boredom, depression, loneliness, and other uncomfortable emotions, emotional states and situations. Most gamblers use gaming or gambling to escape an emotional crisis in life, such as, depression, anxiety, stress. And they get stuck in the desire for quick money. Most gamblers get stuck in the false thinking that gambling will help them get out of money crisis and ignore possible big losses or negative consequences. The desire to win and the hope and belief in winning are such powerful forces in establishing and maintaining problem gambling. The win is seen by many gamblers as a way to improve their life, raise their self-esteem, provide self-worth, solve financial problems, and obtain a dream reality, plus many other things. So what are some of the risks? I've just mentioned some of the risk factors that might attract a person to gambling. Some of the protective factors for youth problematic gaming or gambling might include that they have high self-esteem, they have consciousness, their absence of depression and anxiety, there's no substance use, they have ability to delay gratification, they're future-oriented thinkers, they're able to regulate their emotions, being less accepting toward gambling, and they have low impulsivity. Parenting monitoring is a protective against problematic behaviours, including gambling and gaming. Studies show that increased parental care and higher parental supervision in childhood predict lower rates of problem gaming in adolescence. Adolescents who perceive more parental caring and monitoring report lower likelihood in problem gaming in the future. Peer influences affect online gaming behaviours. In online gaming, players often want to maintain their game progression in line with their peers. Adolescents who regularly play social online games tend to have much smaller and lower quality offline social circles. Greater access to gambling products and earlier age of onset of gambling are risk factors for problem gambling in the future. Accessibility is relevant to youth online gaming and gambling activities given the common presence of devices in the home, including the bedrooms. Gambling at an early age is not necessarily predictive of future gambling or gaming. Similarly, video gaming is not inherently problematic, and many people report that their lives are enhanced in various domains by playing games. But these are the ones with a lot of the protective factors that I spoke about. Now, does anyone have any questions? You can write them in the chat and you can ask them, via the taking your microphone off.
Manal, I think there was a question about the app that you were talking about before that was restricting your children's access to certain things. Do you know what the name of that app was?
It's called Screentime.
Was that with iPhone? Or
That was I had a Samsung at the time. It's called Screentime. I think now you might have to subscribe. It was free during my day. And I think there are many apps that are very similar now. If you say, family apps or lock child screen, so many things can come up. But Screentime was the one that I used. That really helped me a lot, actually. And having open conversations with my kids. I mean, I'm not saying it was easy and there was no rebuttal and there was no pushback. Of course, all these comes with adolescents and teenagers. But when you have a conversation and show them that video, and there's something else called Kaching, K-A, I'll write it in the chat. Kaching is a documentary that gamblers, the gambling industry tried to ban, and you cannot freely access it. I do believe SBS played it a year or two ago, and you might be able to find it on the SBS website. It's a documentary that goes in depth in the detail on how poker machines are made and the science behind gambling. Highly recommend that you watch it and allow, if you have children at risk, let them watch it with you. Have these open conversations with them. Because, the people that want them or make money out of it, some people say the government has an addiction of collecting the taxes that are made from gambling revenues, right? There is an aggressive campaign out there to get people hooked into this stuff because it comes down to the dollars. People are making enormous amount of money out of this industry, including the government. So when the government says, we've made $4.7 billion in a year and we're allocating 25% to that, for people that are, having issues, well, that's not good enough. The industry is not regulated.
Manal,
Yep.
so just for the families that may not be able to participate in this live program, if there are families that have children that they're concerned about in terms of their gaming habits, what advice would you like to give, or are there support services available for them?
Absolutely. So some questions to ask your child. Do you think gambling on sports is normal, and what makes you think so? What do you think there is so much sport betting advertising? When you play online games, do you come across loot boxes? How do they work? Do you think you will always win? Do your school friends talk about the odds or ask you to gamble? Do you think that's a good way to talk about sports or to spend your pocket money? So we try and help our children to understand and to think critically about the risks associated with gambling or gaming. They might not even connect to the word gambling. So maybe don't even use the word gambling, but most kids, and predominantly boys, because it's overwhelmingly a male-dominant world, the gaming world. So perhaps talking to them about, what happens when you win this? What do you feel? What happens to you when you think you're about to win? What does that anticipation look like? And then you can unpack and Google dopamine and the reward system and talk to them that this is not by chance. This game is actually designed to create that experience and to have that physiological, psychological, and emotional impact on you while you're playing to get you hooked, and then perhaps create that, that illusion that you've got a chance of winning. And explore that with them. And there are a few helplines that you can call. One of them is the Gamblers Helpline, which is 1-800-858-858. There is a Gamblers Help Youth Line, which is 1-800-262-376. I work with the Gamblers Family Helpline, and you can access that line and get a counsellor, on the line to explore options if you have a loved one impacted by gambling addiction or alcohol and drug addiction. And that number is 1300-660-668. Other practical things you could do if you feel like you've got someone in the house that could be exposed to gambling contact is to perhaps, again, limit their time, on the computer. See what type of streaming they have on YouTube or Twitch, which are two platforms that, kids access. Limit their access to money. Hide your credit cards. Unfortunately, I've heard so often that kids have accessed their parents' credit cards, fingerprints, I don't know what else. Hide them, put them on your phone where, kids can't get to them. There's an app called Smart Safe app. It's called Smart Safe, and that allows you to upload important documents to your smartphone, whichever one, and you can upload your credit cards to that. And other people can't see the app on your phone. You actually need a PIN or something to access that app yourself. So people can't see it on your phone if they actually grab your phone and try to look for it. That's something else you can try and have. But yes, children can be susceptible, and unfortunately, any form of addiction feeds off secrecy. The more we hide it, the more we try and deal with it ourselves, the more it fests, the more it manifests and grows. So seek professional help, have conversations with your children, and try and get them engaged with a professional counsellor should they be experiencing this issue. But start off by having that uncomfortable conversation.
Now, with those conversations and the questions that you had just before that you could have with your children, are you able to write a few of those down? Because for us, or send them to me, or Gulham might be leaving shortly because her percentage is down, because a few sisters would like to have that discussion with their children and probably would like to have those questions in front of them.
I will send you a link right now. Copy, hang on a minute.
I found it interesting. It was one of the questions I was going to ask you, but you said it already that the research shows that males are more inclined to be gamers than the females, and that's definitely in my household. My boys are into gaming, where my daughter has no interest. I'll definitely be having these conversations with my boys because I know they get very invested in it, and also have spent, not recently, but my eldest has spent money from our credit card, a lot of money from our credit card without us knowing until we, get the statement. And I'm sure that's happened to a few other people because they're smart, these kids. They'll get what they can. Does anyone else have a question for Manal? Even if you want to put it into chat, or you take your mute off and ask her directly, that'd be great.
Sarah, can I just respond to something you've just said?
Sure.
Whilst there are many more boys interacting with gaming or finding it as a way to escape or a play something to connect with their friends, don't put your guard down if you've got daughters.
No.
Because some girls with Candy Crush and other games, farm games, I don't want to say dress-ups, but things that there are games that are trying to hook in girls as well out there. And it could be just something that they're doing out of boredom on their own. And slowly, some research does show that there are some people that have brains that are wired a bit differently and have addictive personalities, pretty much, and can become addictive to things, okay? So just be resilient and be vigilant in that, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, adults, we can fall into that as well. Even me, I've started playing a game on my phone, and I could easily fall into the trap of buying things because I want to progress. So it's not just a child issue here. We've got, adults who's going to fall into this problem as well, because we all want to do well at something.
There are many adults that have lost their houses, let me tell you, and their kids all of a sudden and wife didn't find out about it, because people can be sitting down at the dinner table saying, I'm going through my messages, but they're horse betting or they're betting on some sport. And you're thinking, this is the one that's going to get me out. This is the one that's going to get me to pay back all those bills. This is the one that's going to save me, until they've lost absolutely everything. And then unfortunately, the partner, the other spouse, whether it's male or female, because there are many women that also do, gamble as well, end up finding out we've lost our home, we've lost our community. We might end up having to move. I'll give you an example. I know a family actually that were doing really, really well, had a massive home, had a petrol station, lived on a farm. The father was gambled on horses, unfortunately, and this is a Muslim family I'm talking about. They lost everything and they found themselves in a one-bedroom housing commission flat with 4 adult children, one of which is married, one of which has a disability. The wife is sleeping on the floor. They're all, it's just crazy how much lives have been lost, and people that end up with suicidal ideation or actually attempting, having attempts because of the losses, and they feel like they're at their lowest ever and they can't come back from how far they've fallen. So it's about stopping it from getting that far. I can see people saying, where are the links? What I'm going to do is, after this, I'm going to send Gulhan an email with some links to information and documents that will help you have a conversation with your child and help educate you a little bit more. And I think Gulhan can share it with you with this video, hopefully. Is that right, Gulhan?
She's gone. I think she's gone.
Is that possible?
Yeah, yes, just send whatever links you have, Manal, to Gulhan, and she'll make sure that everyone gets it through email or either in our groups. So, yeah, you can just send her whatever links that you have, good websites and phone numbers, whatever you have, and we'll make sure that everyone gets it, and also the people who didn't attend tonight gets it as well.
All right, I'll do that sometime today. Any other questions? Look, this is a subject, there's no need to feel shame and guilt around this, because We all know someone, and education is power. Education is power. We're all here because it's a massive problem in our community. Don't let that shame make you not do anything, not take a step and try and deal with it. Sometimes it's bigger than us.
Look, I think from a few of the comments here that a few parents have said that during lockdown that they found that they probably let their kids go a little bit more than what they would normally do because, you know, out of boredom, we don't know what to do with our children.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they have probably had more access and not being supervised as much as they probably normally would. So it's going to be hard for them to sort of probably wind back that time that they're allowing their kids to use their screens going forward, because I know that I'll find it hard to, you know, pull back my kids.
Sure. And it's a gradual process, Sarah. You're going to have one step forward, a few steps back, one step forward, two steps back. And while you're getting education, it's also good to share that education with them as well. Yeah, so they know where you're coming from. It's not a vindictive thing. It's not you being personal. This is what industry says. These are real problems that are impacting youth across the globe. And we just want to see you having a healthy lifestyle moving forward and knowing the traps that can easily be fallen into.
Do we have any other questions for Manal? Everyone's very quiet tonight, Manal.
No, it's okay. It's all right. We're allowed to have those days. So I'll send through the stuff. I know it's Maghrib, and maybe some of them because of the outreach of the...
I think a lot of people aren't wanting to use too much energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the battery's going to go.
Yeah. So we can wind off a little bit early if you like, because it is Maghrib time. And if people don't have any other questions, I hope the presentation was informative for you.
Yeah, it was, Manal. Thank you.
This is not a one-off thing. You know, we can explore this again and again and again, hopefully down the track, and run workshops when our Siraat starts in the future. There are talks about running workshops with the youth themselves and bringing in, there is a sports teacher who started off at 18, gambling and feeling that masculinity and wanting to be macho and whatnot. He is now sharing his story into the gambling world and running workshops with youth. So we'll be looking at bringing him in and maybe running some workshops at Al Siraat with the youth.
Well, you've opened the door here and with that video also to things to look out for in the games, because I'm sure a lot of us don't even watch what the kids are doing on their games and didn't know that there's loot boxes and that sort of thing. So now, you know, it's informative for parents to be able to watch what their kids are doing and have that conversation with them.
I really want to point out also the latest craze, this Fortnite. I've heard many parents talk about anger issues with this game, particularly in kids and how it's designed. I don't know, many boys, many mums have come to me and said there's real anger and violence coming that we haven't seen before. And they've had to actually literally ban that game altogether, not just minimize, but actually ban it together. It's called Fortnite. And yeah, be wary of that game.
Yeah, I also can say that, yeah, there is anger issues with my boys with those type of games, and Fortnite's one of them. If things don't go their way, they get quite unhappy. Yeah, it's distressing really when you see that how involved they are with a game. You know, how a game can upset them as much as it does.
Or excite them as much as it does. It's like so extreme, the emotions that come at just really extreme ends. Yeah.
All right, Manal, I don't think we've got any more questions coming up.
Even comments, if anyone's got comments, Zayda. Oh, I mentioned a name, sorry. Anyone's got any comments?
Jazakallah khair, Sister Manal. Jazakallah khair. I have also a son who is, what Sarah said, he's in the lockdown, he became aggressive, she gets anger, Yeah, alhamdulillah, we try on giving him time, certain times to play, certain time, but still is at home. He's year 8.
Yeah,
And
it's fine. May Allah make it easy.
whenever the school at home, the school finishes early for them, and he said he will play that 1 hour before the other kids come home, and it's very stressful. And we didn't know about the loot box and all those things. Thank you so much, and inshallah we'll get more information from you.
I'm going to send the link to the video and everything else to Sister Gulhan, and she can share it with all of you. The more people that learn about this stuff and become aware of what their kids could actually be doing and check their credit card statements, your kids' pocket money, you know, their youth allowance, all of that in question. Where is it going?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still young. He's 13, but alhamdulillah, we'll try our best.
Inshallah, that's
So
all we
it's
can
not
do.
your allowance, and there's no money still in his pocket, but yeah, so many things.
Yeah, khair inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And
Wa yakum.
yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye, Sarah. Thank you, Zahra, for organizing.
Thank you, Sarah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa
Alaikum
barakatuh.
salam wa rahmatullah.
Sarah, done?
Yeah, I think we've got a few people still online, do we? No,
Yeah,
no,
maybe.
it's going now. Yeah.
All righty.
Thank you so much, Manal, for everything.
You're welcome. I hope it was beneficial. Inshallah.
I mean, even for me, it was. I didn't know that. Honestly, what I'd get out of it, because honestly, but once I heard you, I'm like, well, this is my family that you're talking about. You know, things that are happening, because I know my boys are very invested in it, and that my eldest has spent money on our credit card without us knowing. And I mean, this is going back maybe 5 years ago now, so that's a long time ago. But it happens.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. And it's about like when that confrontation, it's about trying to reach into them with that healthy shame, not the, pointing fingers, what you did is wrong and you're bad and blah, blah, blah. It's okay. Now I have an opportunity to unpack what just happened, and help him understand what led him to stealing, because it's stealing.
Yes.
And that his behavior, what looked like something innocent, actually led him down the path of stealing. And often they won't come to that conclusion on their own.
Mm.
Or if they did, it's not as, it's blocking it out, but now they have to actually talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very informative.
Inshallah.
So much.
All right, khair inshallah. All right, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much once again, and I'll send that stuff to Gulhan.
Thank you, Manal. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.